Welcome to Run, Walk, Talk, Tales of Inclusion and Development. I'm Judy and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm here with Steph and her pronouns are she and her. And today we are so pleased to welcome Mallory O'Connor.
Big welcome, Mallory.
Hi.
So I'm going to read your bio and tell you a little bit about Mallory. So if you're watching or listening, Mallory works with enterprise organizations to discover, shape, and deliver compelling and sustainable changes to organizational culture. With over 2 decades of human-centered research and design and a background in psychology, she leads with curiosity and empathy while coaching clients and peers, advising leaders and teams, and shaping the direction of Habanero's culture practice. Drawing on her experience with and interest in life design, she offers a program for women in midlife who's looking for what's next, called the Golden Thread. And outside of work, she is always looking for opportunities to be active outside, especially in, on, or near the water. Thanks so much for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we're very excited to have you here and really dig into this golden thread and all of the work that you're doing. And so, you've spent your career helping organizations better understand people and create better workplace experiences through the human-centered research and experience design and workplace culture strategy. So maybe you could tell us, what was the moment or maybe the turning point that inspired you to turn that same lens on your own life and really create this program for women?
Yeah, it's such a great origin question. But like you said, I've been doing this kind of human-centered research and really experience design in my career. First for technology, that's sort of where that background comes from. And then I've transitioned into organizational culture over the last sort of 7, 8 years. And so I'd also been a coach for my colleagues at Habanero for many years and had developed a mindset around the idea of career crafting, which is kind of this intentional experimentation with directions in your career. So I've been sort of had that in the back of my mind and part of my experience as well in sort of many roles at Habanero and prior to that. But really, the turning point, if I can pinpoint it, it was such an interesting question because I do remember when that happened. I heard a podcast in about, I was trying to remember what year, I think 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. And it was featuring Dan Evans and Bill Burnett, who wrote the book Designing Your Life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fascinated by their story. And so they had both come from Apple. They were designers at Apple, and then were teaching at the Stanford Design School, and they were teaching sort of the courses to the design students around design thinking and the principles of human-centered design. And they, part of the program that they were teaching, they started a course that basically said, take those same skills and techniques and things that you're using for your design projects and where you're aiming for in your career, but also, hey, you might want to use them as you're designing your career moving forward and just intentionally design where you're going. And the course was, a hit. It was of interest for, the students that were just starting their careers, but they kind of noticed this moment where they started seeing people show up and sign up for their course that were like midlife and who were at different stages of their lives and their careers. And it was such a success that they then wrote the book. And it was really, aimed at helping non-designers, learn and use these principles of human-centered design. So research, observation, exploration of possibilities, because you make lots of design concepts in these careers, and then applying them to their lives. So the book concept was like an aha for me. It was like it brought together my work life and kind of where I was at a crossroads in my own life, which was really thinking about my own career, my own personal growth and development. My family was evolving and changing. And I just was starting to percolate on like, what's next? What's my next chapter? How do I want to live my life? And so I got the book. I couldn't quite get it started on my own, so I partnered up with a friend, and we became accountability partners to each other to sort of go through this process. And I found it was just this magic moment of like lighting up my life experience and my desire to figure out what was next for me. So it helped me put names to, what matters and like how I might create these possible futures for myself. So it gave me a way forward, and I was able to transform what had been my approach to career development, career crafting, and this mindset into something even sort of smaller and tighter and more experimental and focused on learning in sort of a smaller scale. So I took that and said, okay, this is really interesting. And I started shaping like my own approach to how I might sort of meld some of these ideas around a practice and of personal, reflection, thinking about what experimentation might look like in the course of, your career. And I got invited to do a couple of talks and workshops, and then mostly within the UX community and the technology community, because that's where, I had those connections. And that was my first kind of career home. And then I started spinning that into talking about longevity, career longevity. And then I honed in on using this skill set to work with women in midlife, and who, for lots of reasons, like similar to my own or different, just looking for meaning and like, what's the path forward? So, long answer to your question, but that's kind of where it came from and how I found
Mm-hmm.
myself here.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you mentioned experimentation a few times, because I think we
Yeah.
think, oh, we can experiment. Well, some of us feel we can experiment at work and try new things, but to apply that to our personal lives, I think is really quite special.
Absolutely.
I wrote down a few words around this sort of, I love
Mm,
the different terms. You're talking about the career crafting, the
mm,
accountability partners, that magic kind of aha moment. Let's talk about the term, the golden thread.
yes.
What does that mean? And why is it such an important sort of concept in your program? And how does someone find theirs?
Mm. I'd always like one of my personal guiding principles is curiosity. And
Mm,
so that's expressed itself through my relationships and connections with people through work and in my life. And I'm always fascinated to ask people, what are the choices and decisions that you made along your path that, have led you to where you are today? And I love the fact that everyone's journey was different. So, it wasn't anything other than my own personal curiosity, but I did, like maybe 20 years ago, say it. It's like everyone has a golden thread that sort of ties it all together for them. But the idea of it is that like the golden thread is a way of, for me, is a way of discovering who you are becoming, by making this connection to the things that you've done in your life, the
mhm,
experiences you've had, what you've learned from it, and how that shapes the life that you've lived, and also can inform where you want to go in the future. So it's like I said, everyone's got their unique version of that. They're formed a bit through guiding principles, kind of hardened through experiences, but it's a path through life, and every moment is an opportunity to learn, that shapes the next thing that you do or refines the thing that you're in. I kind of feel like um, we rarely take the opportunity to sort of stand back, and we're on a go hustle kind of
yeah,
world, right?
that's right.
And to think about our decisions and our experiences, um, makes the golden thread sometimes like invisible or like murky, or you might not just
Mm,
have the time to pause. So it's tapping into understanding what you want more of or less of in life through like this observation and research for yourself. And you know you use those learnings to shape the opportunities that you create, because I want to go do that thing. But also, when things show up in your life, you can make decisions about opportunities that get presented to you. And so to me, it's a very different um, mindset to be thinking about your life in this way. It's this practice
mm,
of
mhm,
reflection, because there's no done in life. So
yeah.
we have to kind of have some skills to help us navigate as things change around us. And then, I don't know if you remember, like, when you got out of high school and everyone asks you what you want to do, and, you might say, I don't know, like, I know I did. It's, thinking about smaller goals and integrating those into manageable things. I think the mindset is also about tuning in when you think about as you're going through these experiences in life and your journey, it's more about tuning into progress and like what is, rather than just focusing on the end goal, what are the things that you're doing along the way? What are you learning about along the way? What's the evidence that you're changing? And do you want to adjust as you go? It's less about, I just got to the end thing, but what's it like? We always talk about the journey, but being really intentional about learning from the journey as you go. And then you find yourself like with more certainty about even when unexpected things come up because you kind of know yourself a bit better. So
Right.
the shift to me to thinking about this golden thread, just it happens over time. It's not like a light switch, but it's really, I just feel confident that everyone can find their way to discover who they're becoming by just tuning in.
Beautiful.
Well, and I was thinking, Steph, you and I were talking today, we're both living past 100, right? So
That's
midlife
right.
isn't what
That's
it
right.
was at one time.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think, it is that
so
continuous
true.
throughout our lives. There's also, because we're asked that when we're graduating from high school. But it's something that's not the only time that you need to be thinking about that. You can be considering, what do I want to do really for, and could be for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
So Mallory, walk us through what the experience actually looks like. So if we were to join one of your cohorts, what is that intentional reflection and design and life experimentation? What is the practical application of it?
Yeah, totally. It's kind of a fun process. I mean, I think I'm biased, obviously. But I run the program with like sort of a combination of time to come together and learn, and then time and space to reflect on your own. So it's in small cohorts, which I think coming together as a group is important. But it's really about giving space to absorb and learn new ways of thinking and being, and then creating the opportunity to work on the process, and then give yourself time to be in sort of two modes of learning and reflection. One is focused thinking, where you're putting active effort into what's the meaning I'm making from this in this moment, and then that idea of diffuse thinking, which is shower time or walking your dog or whatever, where your insight comes from left field and you're going, that's what that meant, just letting it simmer. So I think that for that reason, I create space between the sessions. So it's 4 sessions every 2 weeks, 8 weeks. And it's just, the expectation is that you learn these new moves to make during our time together. And you build some insights about yourself through reflecting. So this time to look back on your life, and it's like an inventory. You give yourself grace and compassion. It's not about judging, that was a terrible decision, this was a great decision, but like, what choices did I make? How did it feel? What did it guide next? What did I want more of and less of? And you're discovering, what are the patterns and the insights from my life? What are the themes I can take by looking back at my professional choices, my life choices, my volunteerism and community engagement, or whatever it might be. And then I find it's really important to like take that and then pull it together into some guiding principles. And I've always, whether it's been a design project for work or my own personal life, some people, have vision boards or whatever, but it's this articulation of, what you want to guide your life design, so that you can use these, phrases or words to test ideas against, or opportunities, and say, is this in accordance with is it congruent with my guiding principles to experiment in this way? So we get to this definition, and then we start looking at designing possibilities. So in the design practice, the idea is to create many, many ideas, lots of possibilities. And it's not just one and go and aim for that shore. It's, I'm going to create many, and from that, I'm going to start experimenting. So they're kind of versions of your life or things in your life that represent your golden thread in action. So what could that future look like? And then the exploring part is like, you start picking things that you want to experiment and learn from it, and how might that, evolve your design ideas. So it's, through it, your outcome is kind of development and growth and kind of readiness to keep doing this in your life moving forward. It's not to come out with a plan or a roadmap. It's more of a capability and a confidence to move forward in the world with like just knowing what matters to me and what I would like more of.
It sounds like it is real community, which is kind of sort of
Mm,
that next kind of question around you focus on sort of a small group versus, let's say, a one-on-one coaching.
yeah.
And so, what have you found that focusing sort of on that community small group, what does that sort of unlock for people?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, community is one of my guiding principles. So maybe selfishly, there's a little bit of that in there
Mm,
for me.
hmm.
But really, what it's prompted by is people come to this for so many reasons, but usually there's a change, like a change
Mm,
of life stage. It could
hmm.
be, retirement. It could be because I am focusing on women in midlife, there's a lot of stuff that's happening at that time. Maybe
Yeah,
a relationship change. Maybe you're going through menopause. Maybe you're, whatever the personal transition is,
yeah,
there's something that usually prompts this reflection moment. And there's a desire for something new, but often paired with this overwhelm of like, how do I deal with this feeling? How do I get the answer to the question? That's the equivalent to the, graduating high school student, what are you going to do next for your life? It's the same question. It's just happening at a different time in your career. The retiring teacher, what's next? They're all, you break up, what's next? Someone who's laid off, what's next?
mhm.
So I think it's important to do it together because the the journey alone can be just so daunting. Like I said, with my designing your life experience for myself, I couldn't get it started without having, that connection with my girlfriend Jacqueline. We leaned into it together. It was really the accountability partnership was helpful. So the magic of small groups to me is that even though everyone's got their own version of their golden
Yeah,
thread, they I, I work to create a small and safe setting so that people are, getting to know each other.
yeah.
We have sort of progressive sharing so they feel they can share stories and laughter and occasionally tears or whatever. It all comes up.
Hmm.
Um, but like this cohort offers uh, a lot of perspective because there's things that are so hidden from ourselves,
Yeah,
but can be so clear when offered to others. There's
yeah,
something about figuring it out together that's so
yeah.
lovely and supportive. And then, I love it when the community kind of like takes hold on its own through like WhatsApp groups or chats or meeting up in the real world for working sessions for coffee or whatever. Um, there's something beautiful about that, and then they also have that accountability to each other. It's the
Hmm.
other people's stories, the offer sometimes of
Hmm.
what they see that is new and fresh. So yeah, I think it's special.
Oh, I love the sound of that. And I think if somebody's listening and they've got this quiet voice inside, sort of asking, what's next for me, but they haven't acted on it yet, what would you say is just one small thing that they could even do this week just to start moving ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really helpful to have this sense of like more of less of, and paying attention. You could even just be journaling this week and documenting, what felt great and what didn't feel great,
Hmm.
and what are the conditions that I might want to create in order to get more of that thing in my life. And that takes the pressure off of figuring out your guiding principles and like getting lofty. But like in the right now, I think just the practice of observance and reflection is really it's the foundation of this work. And then you can build confidence in that and start moving forward with, you can go a little bit deeper. You can look at more broader strokes in your life. You can start to go back into your, when people ask, how far back do we want to go with this reflection? I'm like, you can go back as far as you want to go. You can go back to childhood, you can go back to high school graduation, wherever feels like you started to make choices that, influenced your life, and think about who was there with you and how did it feel. So you can start small, but really the benefit is to then start, casting your net a little bit wider.
I love that. Thank you.
Mallory, this has been so good. We're coming to the end. Thank you so
Mm.
much for joining us. Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you want to share?
Um, I am just organizing myself for the next cohort, which is happening in September.
Okay.
So if anyone is interested in exploring this for themselves, it's an online cohort, so available anywhere, and it's at MalloryO'Connor.com. So encourage you to reach out, and there's contact information there if anyone's curious and just wants to have a conversation.
Great. And we'll make sure in the show notes to put all of the links and everything so that everybody can
Amazing.
have it. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It was a delight to talk about the things that I could wave my arms around about and chat about forever.
Thank you.
Yes.